Hello, this is Intech Centre, and we are a training center that offers functional skills, maths and English, both courses and the exams, funded and private options. Today we will be doing the sample paper from the AQA awarding body. Now, please do note that our awarding body is City and Guilds, and so this is from a different awarding body, AQA. This video is to help support our learners at our center, and so it is for internal use only. So now we will get started with the exam itself. So we are now on the exam paper. This is the non-calculator paper. We will be doing that first. We are looking at the non-calculator paper first, and then we will be doing the calculator paper. If we take a look, we are specifically looking at their sample paper 1. The time allowed for this paper is 30 minutes, and the maximum mark for this paper is 20 marks. For each of the questions, what I recommend is to pause the video before seeing my solutions in order to maximize your learning benefit from this video. So we will continue and start with question 1. So here we have to see that we have to circle the largest number, and we're given a set of 4 numbers. Now these numbers are decimals. So with decimals, as a recommendation, we would want to make sure that in order to easily compare them, to put all of them as 4. So we can see the largest number of decimal places is 4. We can see over here 4 decimal places. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that all of these decimals have 4 decimal places. So 0.756, that's 3, and we'll just add a 0, right? We just have to increase the number of zeros. It's still the same number. 0.7600. Now that has 4 decimal places. And 1/6. There we go. Now it's much easier to compare the numbers, right? So the 0 point is the same. So now we're looking at 7,560. You could say like this part here, and we're comparing these 4 numbers here. So here we can see obviously the largest number is 0.76, the middle one here. So we want to circle that on our answer above, and that's how you solve the first part, the first question. Moving forward to question 2, we have an expression and we want to solve that expression, right? We want to work out the answer. So here, if we can look, we can see that we have brackets, we have indices, we have subtraction. So this should indicate, that's an order of operations question where we have to use BIDMAS. So following BIDMAS, right? So I'll just write it down here. We want to do brackets first. So first we want to solve 7 minus 5. So if we just do 7 minus 5, nope, let me write that more clearly. 7 minus 5, that equals 2. So now we've internally solved that. So then I will just say that this means we have now 22 minus, and I'll put in parentheses to show that, to make it very clear that we did the brackets first, we solved the brackets first. Now we have the index over here, right? The 3 on top, 2 to the power of 3. That means taking 2 and multiplying it by itself 3 times. So 2 times 2 is 4. So that's 2 squared. And we want to take now 4, the resulting answer, and multiply that by 2 again, which we get 8, right? So now if we can use these arrows to just show that, okay, this is what we're doing. And then we have 22 minus 8, right? And following that, we just do 22 minus 8, and we have 14. And so that is our final answer to this question, 14. So now we're on question 3, where we're looking at the sum of 2 fractions. So when working out either the sum or the difference, so adding or subtracting 2 fractions, we all want to make sure the first step is to find a common denominator, meaning we want the lower numbers here to be the same, right? So that we can just add them straight across. That's the first step. So now it's with these 2 fractions are actually not very bad. It actually helps us quite a bit. We don't have to do as much work in the sense that 6 is a multiple of 3. So we actually don't need to change anything about the left side of the fraction. All we need to do is change the right side because 3 goes into 6 twice, right? So by that, I mean, we want to multiply the top part by 2 and multiply the bottom part by 2. And that gives us 2 over 6, right? So now we already have our common denominator, 6. We didn't have to do anything to the 5 over 6, right? So now what we have, so to write the work a bit more clearly, we want to take 1 over 3. We say that that is the same or equal to 2 over 6, right? You can show multiplying by 2 on both sides just to make it extra clear. And so now we have 5 over 6 plus 2 over 6. And that is equal to now 7 over 6. Now you can leave your answer like this, or you can write it, since it's an improper fraction, you can convert it to a mixed number if you'd like. So this is also 1 and 1 over 6, right? Now if you take 6 times 1 plus 1, that's 7. So you can check that it's correct. So you can write either answer below. So I'm just going to write the mixed number since we calculated that. 1 and 1 over 6. That's our answer to this question. Next question. We are on question 4 now. We are working out the division 1.302 divided by 6. Now, the reason why they ask this question when they give 2 marks is because you're taking a smaller number and then dividing it by a larger number, which, you know, is a bit odd, others would say, and will, you know, give us a number that's smaller than 1. So you would proceed in the normal fashion that you would. So I'm just going to do on the left side here. We have 6 and we have 1.302. Okay. So now does 6, so now we just continue as normal, right? Does 6 go into 1? No. So we'll put 0 here, 1 minus 0, that's 1, right? And then we want to put the point. So now the point, luckily the decimal place is already there since we're multiplying a decimal number. Otherwise, if this was a whole number, we would put a dot and then just keep adding zeros, because again, 1 is equal to 1.0 and infinitely many zeros, it's all equal to 1. But in this case, we already have a decimal and we have set numbers afterwards. So now we just continue forward. So now point, we bring down the 3, right? So now we have 13. Now 6 goes into 13 twice with 1 left over, right? So we have 12. So we put the 2 on top, minus 12. That gives us 1. Now we bring down the other 0. So we have 10. That goes once, right? 6 goes into 10 once with 4 left over, remainder. And now we bring down the 2. Now 6 goes into 42 7 times. 6 times 7 is 42. And there we go. We have no remainder anymore. So now our answer to this question is 0.217. Hopefully that makes sense. Now we should move on to the next question, where we want to write this in digits, write the following in digits: 27,043,060. So what I recommend doing is writing each of the individual components. So 27 million, right? So let's just first write that out. So 27 million, right? And then we want now 43,000, right? And then we want to add 60, correct? So then we want to take, so then we just add these numbers up, right? So 27, 0, then we have 43 here, 0, and then 60, right? So that's 43,060, and then we have a few, then we have a 0 there, and then we have 27 at the end, reading from right to left, right? So that will be our final answer for this question. Moving on to the next question. So now we are on question 6, where we see that Troy works in a call center. He receives 15 calls on Monday, and we have information about that below. Troy has a target to keep the average length of his phone calls to 20 minutes or less. Does the estimated mean time of these phone calls meet his target? You must show your working. Okay, and it's 4 marks. So if we take a look here, we're given, we can't really see how long each of these individual 15 calls are. So we can't get an exact mean or an exact average length of the phone calls. However, we can get an estimated mean as indicated here in the question. So they've already solved part of the question for us, where we have to figure out the midpoint, which is where we take, you know, the two numbers here. So from 0 to 10, right? 0 plus 10 is 10, divide by 2 is 5, 10 plus 20 is 30, divide by 2 is 15, so on and so forth. They've already done that first step for us. So what we need to do now is multiply the frequency and the midpoint here. So I'm just going to put X here to indicate multiplication, right? So here now we're getting essentially the total, the total number of, you could say, customers, the total amount of time for each of like these 4 people here. So you're just trying to sum up, you're trying to figure out the total, right? So the total number of minutes, we have to estimate that as well. We don't know exactly, again, how many minutes there is. So, apologies. So we have 4 times 5 here, that's going to be 20. So I'll just say total, I can say here, estimated total minutes. Right, so we have 20, 3 times 15, that's 45. Then 6 times 25, it's going to be 150. Apologies, there's a slight technical issue. And now we have 35 times 2, which is 70. So now we want to add up all of these numbers together. So we have 20 plus 70, that's 90, right? So let's just start with 90 here, since 70 and 20 were easy to figure out. Plus 45, we get 135, and then we want to add 150 to it below. So we get 285. That's our estimated total number of minutes that we think that Troy has spent on the 15 phone calls altogether. And now we want to take 285 and divide that by 15, right? So to see the average length of his phone calls. So I'm just trying to see where we can put space. So here I'll do 15, 285, okay? So 15, so now we'll look at, 15 doesn't like go into 2 any amount of times. So we'll look at 28, 15 goes into 28 once, right? So that'll be 15. So now 28 minus 15, 8 minus 5, that's 3. 2 minus 1 is 1, right? So we have 13. Then we want to bring down the 5. So now 135. So we know that 15, let's just see, we can see that 15, let's say times 5, that's 75. So we know if we add another 15, we'll get 90, right? And then adding another 15 will give us 105. So that's 15 into 7 is 105. Then we can keep going. So then we'll get 120. And then, so that'll be 15 times 9. 135, right? 9 times 5 is 45. And 9 times 1 plus 4 is 13. So we can see here it goes directly. So we'll just put 9. And we have minus 135, 0. So we can see here the average, the estimated mean time, we've just figured that out, is 19. So obviously, again, all of this work can be shown below. So the table we figured out together by multiplying. So it'd be good to show all the work in the area space below. And then we can now say estimated mean time is equal to 19 minutes. And so does the estimated mean time of these phone calls meet his targets? Yes. So I'll say yes. The estimated mean time is 19 minutes, which is less than his target time of 20 minutes, right? So just making it very clear that the estimated mean time is 19 minutes, which is less than his target time of 20 minutes. So he meets the target, obviously. Hopefully this question makes sense. So now moving forward to the next question. Now customers were asked to rate their experience of the call center from 1 to 5. And here we have a graph of those ratings. A rating of 1 or 2 is poor. We want to work out the fraction of these ratings that were poor. And we want to give our answer in its simplest form. So a fraction consists of a numerator and a denominator, right? We want to see a fraction of those ratings that were poor. So that fraction essentially is going to consist of, we're going to have the total number of ratings that were given, right? We need that at the bottom because we want to see how many of those ratings were poor. So here we need the total ratings. I'll just say total number of ratings, right? And then here we just need the number of poor ratings, right? So let's first figure out the total number of ratings. So here, number 1, we can see that number 1, there's 3 people that rated number 1. We have 9 people that rated number 2. We have 18 people that rated at number 3. We have 34 people that rated number 4. And number 5, we have 26 people. So now we want to sum up all these numbers to figure out the total number of ratings that we have. So here I will just put that here below. So we have 26 plus 34, right? That equals 60. And then we want to add 18 to it, right? So 60, and then I guess to make it very clear, 60 plus 18 is equal to 78. 78 plus 9, that is equal to 87. And then 87 plus 3 is equal to 90. So there were a total of 90 ratings, and this is how they rated it. And now a rating of 1 or 2 is poor. So there are 12 people that rated it a 1 or a 2, right? 9 plus 3, 12. So our fraction now is going to be, so I'll just say here, 9 plus 3 equals 12 for ratings. So then that means that our fraction, so we have our 90 here and we have our 12 here, is 12 over 90. Now, there is one small part that we still have to do, as they ask us to give our answer in its simplest form. So 12 over 90 is the answer, but it's not the final answer. So we want to simplify it, right? So let's simplify it so we can see both sides. We can divide the top by 3 and divide the bottom by 3. So 12, so when I put the slash, that essentially means divide, like if you put on a computer. So just putting a slash here, right, to indicate divide. So 12 divided by 3, that's 4. 90 divided by 3, that's 30. Then we can still simplify this further. We can divide the both top and bottom by 2, right? So now that gives us 2 over 15. Now, can we simplify 2 over 15 any further? No, we cannot. So our final answer to this question is 2 over 15. That is the fraction of these ratings that were poor, 2 out of 15. Hopefully that makes sense. We will now continue on the following page. So the same individual, Troy, in 1 year, his salary is £20,370. That year, he pays income tax on his salary with the rate below. So the first 12,570 of his salary, right? So we'll say, let's say this is his salary, right? So this is what, 2370, right? The end here. Now let's say up to 12,570. So that's a bit more than half. That's around 60%. I'm just estimating here. So this chunk, he does not get taxed on at all, 0% tax. Now this part here is where he gets taxed at 20%. So they take 20% of whatever this amount is, and that is their tax. That is the income tax. And then he also pays $1296.24 in national insurance. Work out the total of income tax and national insurance Troy pays that year. Okay, great. So the national insurance is already here, so we don't need to do anything to calculate that. They just want us to calculate the 20% as I've shown in the diagram above. So we want to see how much is this left, right? 20% of this. So now how much is this in the top right corner here? I'm circling, right? So that's going to be 20,370 minus 12,570, right? So we just need to subtract those two. So now I'll just do some other working here. So 20,370 minus 12,570. So 0, 0. We have to borrow from here. The 10 we need to borrow, make it 9 so that we have 1 here. 13 minus 5, that's going to be 8. Then we have 9 minus 2, that's going to be 7. And 1 minus 1, which is 0, so that's 7,800. So noting that, so let me just put that actually here. Actually, let me just rewrite that part below. So we have 20,370 minus 12,570 is equal to 7,800. And now from the 7,800, he gets taxed at 20%, right? So we want to figure out 20. We want to figure out 20% of 7,800. So now an easier thing to do when you're calculating percentages of numbers is that you can break that down. So from 20%, right? We know 20% is, let's say, double of 10%, right? You just take 10 times 2, that's 20. It works the same with percentages, right? So figuring out 10% should be a relatively simple and relatively simple to complete. So let's just say let's just say it's the same thing, I guess. I'll just rewrite it here. 2 times 10% of 78 7,800. So 10% of 7,800, we just need to move the decimal place over, right? So 7800, and we want to divide that by 10. So that gives us 780, right? We just want to take the decimal place and move it over once, or you just divide by 10. Then now we have 780, and we now want 2 times 780, right? So if we just do the calculation, I'll do it on the side here, 780 multiplied by 2. 8 times 2, 16, carry the 1. That's going to be 1560, right? So that's going to equal 1560 pounds. So that is 20% of 7,800. So that's how much income tax he will pay for this year. So now we want to add the total amount. So we have the national insurance, and now we have the income tax that he will pay. So we just have to add them up. So we get 1560, right, plus 1290 1296.24. So now we have 1,560 plus 1296.24. So I'm just going to do some of the work on the side. 1560 plus 1296.24. You can put 0.00 if you'd like, just to make it more simple and easier to read. So 6 plus 9 is 15. We have to carry the 1. 5 plus 2, that's 7 plus 1 is 8. And then we have 1 plus 1 is 2. So in total, he pays 2856.24, right? So that is the total amount of income tax and national insurance that Troy pays that year. So we can see here the unit is already given. So we can just write our answer, 0.24. And that is the answer to this question. And that is the end of this exam paper. The rest of the pages here, as we can see, are just additional pages where you can write more information. So thank you so much for watching this video. Now, make sure to take a look at the calculator section, which will be done, which should be linked below. And I hope to see you there. Best of luck with your exam preparations as well. Bye-bye.